Hey guys, this is Chubs, and today I'm going to be showing you how to use the Strife dialog system to create conversations just like this. Weapons. Let's see, I've got a shotgun, a chain gun, and a big ol' honkin' rocket launcher. Take your pick. One rocket launcher coming right up. Just try not to blow yourself up, okay? Alright, hope you guys enjoyed that little intro there. Today's tutorial is going to be covering GZDoom Strife Dialog Format, which is basically the most modern, fully featured variant of the original Strife Dialog Format. Before we get started though, I just want to give you guys a quick tour of this map that I've set up. This map is going to feature a sort of RPG-like setup where the player is going to get a quest and he's going to complete it and then return it to get a reward. So let's go into visual mode and I'll give you guys a quick tour of it. So this is the player start, and the player is facing this sort of fortress. This is meant to be like a military base. And you can see around this base here we have some Marines, and these are just scripted Marines. They've all been set to friendly, and they're also dormant. So really all they do is just stand there like statues. But if we go up these stairs and then through this big door, straight ahead you can see a bunch of guards standing around, and this guy right here in the middle is, in our case, going to be the base's commander, and he's going to be the guy you're going to be getting the quest from. So let's go back outside the base to where the player is, and if we look to the left you can see sort of off in the corner here is a door, and through this door is an arms dealer. So this is the guy that you're going to be coming to buy weapons and ammo. So we're going to be setting up a shop in this tutorial as well. So let's return to the player. You can also see that we have a waterway here. Down in the water I have some coins. This is going to be the currency that we're going to use. These are based on the Strife coin. I actually just created a custom version of a Strife coin, but it's still considered a coin and can still be used the same way. We'll see that here later in this tutorial. But if we go through this waterway, we have a sort of a strange dude off to himself here, and this is going to be like a shady trader guy, and he's going to be wanting to do a trade. He's going to want you to trade him a pistol for a chainsaw, so we'll be doing the logic for that later. And then finally, the last part of this little tour that I want to show you is behind the player. You can see that we have a sort of barred off area. This is meant to be like a dangerous sort of swampland area. This is what your quest is going to be regarding. So if we go down here, you can see this cave here where there are some dead Marines, and we have a Hell Knight. So the quest that you're going to get from that base commander is going to be to go down here, kill this Hell Knight, and then return for a reward. So when you get that quest from the commander, he's also going to be lowering these bars for you. I'm going to show you how to do that, and that way you can actually go down here and get to the Hell Knight to kill it. So now that I've gone over that tour, let's get busy with the actual dialogue. We're going to start things off with just a very simple conversation, just a single page of dialogue without any choices that you have to make or anything like that. Just one person saying something to you. And that person is going to be this guy right here. He's going to be like a sentry, just a basic guard. So let me show you how to do that. So if we go back here to the regular edit mode, one way you can do Strife dialog is you can go into Slade and you can create a dialog lump there in Slade, and you can do it that way. But another way, the method I'm going to be showing in this tutorial, is you can edit dialog right here inside of Doom Builder. To do that, you actually just go to the script editor. If you've seen any of my ACS scripting tutorials, you should be familiar with this, but it's the button up here in the upper left-hand corner. So if we click that button, it will open the script editor. You can see that we have two tabs. The default tab is going to be the scripts tab. This is for ACS scripts. But you also have a dialog tab, and this, of course, is where you're going to be writing your Strife dialog. Now, I do want to give a quick word of warning, something that I found out during my testing. If you choose to go with Doom Builder for your dialogue editing like we're doing here in this tutorial, what I noticed is for some reason, if you try and only do dialogue and not have any scripts, when you go to test your map, Doom Builder will throw up an error that there is no script lump. for some reason it seems like it expects there to also be scripts. So to get around that real easy, you can basically create just a blank script lump so that it won't complain at you. To do that, while you're still on the scripts tab here, just type what I'm about to type right here. Type the number sign, and then the word include, space, and then inside quotations, zcommon.acs. Just that. When you're finished, click this compile script button. It should compile without any errors. So what we did is we basically just created a blank script, but that will at least put that lump in place, and that way we can now edit dialog freely, and we won't have any problems when we go to test our map. Otherwise, Doom Builder would complain. I don't know why that happens, but that's a quick and easy workaround. What I do want to say though, for the purpose of this tutorial, I do want to write just a real simple script. I'll do that here real quickly. This is not going to be a script-based tutorial, but I do want to write a basic script here that basically just clears out the player's inventory so that he starts the map with nothing at all, not even his fist. So to do that, I'm just going to go down and I'm going to type script, and I'm just going to call this script clear player inventory. I'm going to make this an enter script for when the player enters the map, so the script just runs automatically. And then all I'm going to make this script do is I'm going to make it do clear inventory. It's just going to call the clear inventory function. I'm going to click compile script again. And if you don't understand that, that's fine. This is not a scripting tutorial. This is just for this specific map. I want the player to not have any weapons. So now that we've got this out of the way, we have a script lump so that Doom Builder won't complain. Let's finally get to the actual dialogue. And I'm sorry that it took us so long to actually get to this point, but let's start writing the dialogue. So since we're going to be using the GZDoom Strife Dialog Format, what we very first need to do on the dialogue tab here is we need to enter this line up at the top. We need to type namespace equals, and then inside quotations, GZDoom. And don't forget a semicolon at the end. You'll see quite often throughout this tutorial that most of the lines that we enter here during the dialogue, they will have semicolons at the end. And if you don't include those semicolons, you will get errors and your dialogue will not behave as intended. It's a very easy mistake to make. So now that we've specified that we're using the GZDoom Strife Dialog Format, let's give that guard some dialogue. So basically, anytime you speak with a person, that conversation in its entirety goes inside of what's called a conversation block. And a conversation block looks like this. It's the word conversation, and then it is an opening and a closing brace, just like that. And so now anything that you want to have to do with that specific conversation is going to go between those opening and closing braces. And it's important that it goes between those, because any code that goes outside of those will cause problems. So what we want the very first thing we want to do here with this conversation is give it a number, an ID, and that way we can attach it to an actor out there in the world. So I'm going to type ID equals, and then you can just give this an integer number. And you want this to be an ID that hasn't been used yet. Since we haven't used any IDs for any conversations, I'm just going to give this an ID of 1. And then I'll do a semicolon. And then we'll go down. So inside of a conversation block, remember that a conversation block encompasses like an entire conversation with someone. We're going to create a page block. You can think of a page as like a single page of dialogue that is shown on the screen. A page is basically like what the person is saying, and then optionally the choices that you have to say back to them. So let's create a page block. So you start with the word page, and then just like with the conversation block, we have an opening and a closing brace. So when I use the term block, I'm really referring to this right here, the name of the block and then the opening and closing brace. So this is a conversation block and this is a page block. So inside of the page block, Remember that I just said a page block basically is like the current page of dialogue that you see on your screen. You have a bunch of different things that you can enter. The first thing you can put in for a page block is the name of the speaker. So we'll go ahead and do that. So I'll type the word name equals, and then you can give the speaker any name that you want. So we're going to be talking with that guard right outside the base, so I'm just going to call him Sentry. He's like a sentry guard. And then I'll put a semicolon. And then we'll go down. And next, another option that you have for a page block, really something that you need to have, is what the person is going to be saying to you. And that's going to be the dialogue property. So we'll type the word dialogue equals, and then I'll just give him something to say. I've actually typed this out ahead of time, that way you guys won't have to sit here and wait for me to come up with something. So what I wrote out ahead of time was, welcome to the base, soldier. Our commander is just past the door at the top of the stairs. So that's what the sentry is going to be saying to us. And really, that's all that we should need for this guy. So we're not going to have any choices that we can make or anything like that. All that's going to happen is it's going to launch a conversation, and this page of dialogue is going to pop up. The speaker's name is going to be Sentry, and then what he's going to say to us is what I just typed. Welcome to the base, soldier. Our commander is just past the door at the top of the stairs. So there's really not a whole lot to it. You can see it's fairly simple. So now that we have typed this, let me show you how you bind this to an actor. So notice that we gave this conversation an ID of 1. All we have to do, I'll close the script editor. We'll go to this guard here. This is the guard that's standing outside the base. I'll pull up his properties, and if you go to the Action tab, if you look in the upper right hand corner here, you can see Conversation ID. And this is actually, it should default to 0, I believe. But we want to change this to 1. And that way we're telling this actor here that his conversation ID should be 1, so that when we speak with him, he uses this conversation block. So let's go ahead, now that we've set him up to have that conversation, let's test the map and let's see if we can indeed speak with him. And you can see there, we have the dialogue at the top. You can see his name. Welcome to the base, soldier. Our commander is just past the door at the top of the stairs. And you always had this option here. This is something you can't change. It's like a buy option. You're telling the person buy. Even if you give the person even if you give the player a bunch of different choices to make, this option will always appear last. There's no way to remove this. This basically just exits the dialogue right away. So there you have it. That's how easy it is to just make a very simple form of dialogue. So just to do a quick recap here, you just create the conversation block. You give it an ID. That way you have a number you can assign to an actor out there in your map. You create a page block. That's the page of dialogue that pops up. You enter the name of the speaker. You enter what you want them to say to you. That's it. So for a simple conversation, it's really very easy to do. So the next thing that I want to show you is how to give the player some different choices that he can make. And that is going to involve that commander. So let me go into visual mode here and we'll walk up the stairs again. So we're going to be dealing with this guy right here. And just like I told you when I was giving that tour of the base, or of the map, the commander is going to be giving us a quest to go down here and kill this Hell Knight. So we're going to give the player an option to choose to accept that quest. So let's pop open the script editor again, and if you're not already on the dialogue tab, make sure you have that dialogue tab selected. And remember what I was saying earlier, that a conversation block encompasses an entire conversation with a specific person. That conversation block was for the sentry outside the base. We want this next conversation to involve that base commander, so we're going to need to make a brand new conversation. And how do you do that? Well, you create another conversation block. So let's type the word conversation. Don't forget your opening and closing brace. We're going to give this conversation an ID of 2. We're just going to keep counting up. We want to make sure we use a unique ID. So this one will be 2. And we're going to start again with a page block. So we'll type the word page using open and close brace there. Don't forget those. And then we're going to do some similar stuff to what we had above with the sentry. We're going to type name. And for this, instead of sentry, we'll just type commander. And then don't forget the semicolon. Next, we'll type dialog. This is what the commander is going to be saying to you. And I've already written this ahead of time, so I'll go ahead and type it out real quick. So, got a job for you, soldier. A bit of a demon problem. If you'll agree to help, I'll give you some coins up front so you can buy yourself some gear. And then I'll end it with a semicolon. So he's telling us that they have a demon problem, and that if we agree, he'll give us some coins. That way we can go to that arms dealer and buy some guns and ammo. So right now, if we were to test this map, all that would happen is we would see that, and we would have that mandatory sort of goodbye option, and that would be it. We couldn't make any choice to accept his offer. So let's change that. Let's give the player a choice. To do that, you create a choice block. A choice block goes inside of a page block, and you can have a maximum of 5 choices. So let's start. Let's give the player a choice to make. So I'll type the word choice, and then I'll do an open and closing brace. And notice that anytime I use the term block, it's just the word and then opening and closing brace. So when I say a choice block, it involves the word choice and then an opening and closing brace. So you'll hear me using that term very often in this tutorial. And inside a choice block, you have a bunch of different options here that you can use. The first thing, obviously, is going to be what that choice says. So when you're on that dialog page, this is what the player is going to see. It's going to be the text for the choice that he's about to make. So to do that, you'll type the word text equals. And then for this choice, this is going to be like the player replying to the commander. We'll say, sure, I'll help. So he's telling the commander that he'll help out with the demon problem. And if he agrees to help, what we want to do is allow the commander to tell him more information about that quest. So to do that, what we'll want to do is send the player to a different page of dialogue. This is still going to be within the same conversation, but we need it to be a different page where the commander is saying something different. So first, let's create another page, and then we'll come back to this choice. So let's create a different page block, and we're still within this conversation. So I'll do page. So we're on a completely different page, and you still have to type the name of the speaker. So we'll type commander. And then we'll do dialogue, and this is where the commander is explaining the situation now that the player has accepted the quest. So the commander will say, a Hell Knight just tore up a bunch of our men down in a cave by the swamp. Take these coins to the arms dealer and gear up, then kill the Hell Knight and return to me for a reward. I've lowered the gate leading to the swamp. Best of luck, soldier. And then don't forget to end it with a semicolon. So he's explaining that a Hell Knight tore up a bunch of his men. He's giving you some coins, telling you to go over to the arms dealer and gear up. And then, of course, he's telling you to kill that Hell Knight and then return for a reward. You can also see that he's saying that the gates leading to the swamp have been lowered, and that's something else I'm going to have to show you how to do. First, though, we have the choice up here where the player has said, sure, I'll help, but right now this choice isn't really doing anything. We need to make it so that when the player chooses that, when the player makes that choice, we send him here to this page where the commander is explaining the situation. Doing that is as simple as typing next page equals, and then the number of the page you want to send the player to. Inside each conversation, each page block has a number, and these just count up starting with 1. So this page is considered page 1, and this page is considered page 2 in this particular conversation. Something else that you can do, something that's I believe exclusive to GZDoom Strife Dialog Format, is you can give pages names. To do that, you can type page name equals, and then you can type in a string. Like for this, you could call it something like mission briefing, and then you could do next page equals mission briefing. You could send the player down here that way. I'm just going to use the number method, but that is something you can do. You can name pages if you'd like to do that, but I'm just going to use the number method this time. So we're going to say next page equals 2, because this is considered the second page of this conversation. So to recap here, when the player speaks with the commander's saying that he's got a job for him. The player has an option here that says, sure, I'll help. And when the player makes that choice, we're specifying that that choice should send the player to page 2, which is going to be this page. And that's where the commander is giving the player a rundown of the situation. So before we really go any further, I'm just going to test this, make sure we don't have any problems. So let's see this in action so far. We still have a lot of work to do, but let's make sure that it's all working. And actually, I got ahead of myself there. I went to test the map, and I realized that although we had written out this entire conversation with these pages, we forgot to link this to our commander. So this conversation has an ID of 2. So let's go to our commander. He's the guy here in the center. I'm going to pull up his action tab, and I must have done this ahead of time before I started recording this video, but when you have an actor, their conversation ID should default to 0. So we're going to make sure that we change the commander's conversation ID to 2, and that way he is using this conversation block with these different pages. So now that we've set that up, let's go ahead and test it and make sure that what we have so far actually works. Okay, so you can see his name is displaying properly. We can see that he's the commander. He's telling us he's got a job for us, and you can see that we have 2 options now. We have that default buy option, but we also have this option that we added ourselves that says, sure, I'll help. If we click that, you can see that we've now gone to a different page. So when I use the term page, this is what I mean. We're on a page right now. And each page has the name of the speaker, what they're saying, and then the options that you have to respond with. So you can see that on this second page here, he's explaining the situation. He's telling us about the Hell Knight, telling us what our objective is. And right now, we just had this default buy option. So everything that we've put in so far has worked. So we still have some things to do, though. One thing that we obviously need to do is we need to lower these bars when we accept the quest, so that we can actually go out here and fight that Hell Knight. And let me show you how we would go about doing that. So I've gone ahead of time. I've given these bars a sector tag of 2. And if we pop open our script editor again and go back to the dialog, something that's cool about choice blocks is that you can specify a certain line action or a special to take effect when that choice is made. So when the player says, sure, I'll help, what we can do is activate a floor lower line action that lowers those bars, so that not only will the commander brief the player, but those bars will also be lowered so the player can get out there. So to do that, first you type the word special equals, and then the number of the special, and I actually forget what the number is, so if you aren't sure, you can just close the dialog editor and just go to any line. And I'm not going to actually assign this special, I'm just using this to look at the special numbers. So I'm going to pull up the list of specials, go to the floor category, and floor lower to nearest should be fine. So that's, you can see that's number 22. And it's also important that we look at the values we need to enter for that. So the sector tag needs to be 2 because that's the tag I've set up ahead of time for those bars. And we'll keep the movement speed at normal. So looking at this information, you can see the line number or the action number needs to be 22, and then the 2 arguments that we need to use for this are going to be 2 for the sector tag and 16 for the movement speed. So 22, 2, 16. So let's remember those numbers. So let's pop open the dialog editor again. So the special number is going to be 22. The first argument, which is going to go by the name of arg0, this is actually argument number 1, is going to be 2. That's the sector tag for those bars. And then the second argument, which is going to go under arg1, is going to be 16, and that's the speed that the bar is lower. So what we're saying is that when the player makes this choice, when he says, sure, I'll help, we are activating the floor lower to nearest special. We're targeting the sector with a tag of 2, which is going to be those bars, and they're going to be lowered at a speed of 16. So let's run a quick test on that, and let's make sure that that actually works. So we'll run up here real quick, speak with the commander, let's accept the quest, back out of the conversation, and looky there. The bars have been lowered, so that did indeed work. Alright, so the next thing that I wanted to show you guys is we only have one choice so far. Let's give the player another choice to make. So to do this, all you have to do, as you might have guessed, is you just throw in another choice block. So we already have this one choice block here for sure, I'll help, but let's do another one. So for this other choice the player can make, we're going to make the choice show up as what kind of demon problem. So the player is sort of asking the commander before he's actually accepted the commander's request, what kind of demon problem are you talking about? And this is where the commander is going to give a sort of a smart aleck reply, and he's going to say, I'm not telling you anything until you accept my offer. So to do that, to make the commander give that response, all we have to do is when the player makes this choice, we will send him to a different page. We've already used page 2 for that briefing, so we're going to have a page 3 where the commander is giving that response. So let's go down here and let's create a new page block. Make sure that you have an opening and a closing brace. Don't forget either one. And again, the name of the speaker is going to be the commander. And the commander is going to say to the player, if the player tries to ask what kind of problem it is, actually it should be dialogue equals, not text equals. In a page block, it's dialogue equals. And the commander is going to say, I'm not telling you anything until you accept my offer. And what we also want to do is we want to basically create a sort of loop here. So when the player gets to this point, we want him to be able to ask the commander, what was the offer again? And that way the commander can sort of go back over it again and give the player another choice to accept. So let's first go back here to where the player's asking him what kind of problem, and let's link him to this new page that we made. So we'll say next page equals 3. So now when the player makes this choice here, when he asks what kind of problem is it, we're going to where the commander's saying, I'm not telling you anything. And on this page where the commander's being sort of a smart ass, we're going to give the player a choice here. So I'm going to do a choice block. And this choice is going to show up to the player as, what was the offer again? And then when the player asks that, what was your offer again? All we're going to do is we're going to send the player back to the very first page here where the commander's saying, got a job for you, a bit of a demon problem. So let's just say when the player asks, what was the offer again? Next page equals 1. So we've done a lot here. So let me just do a quick recap of how our system is set up. So when the player first speaks to the commander, he's going to get two choices. The first choice is sure, I'll help. He's agreeing to help, so the bars are going to lower, and then we're going to send the player to page 2, which is where the commander is giving us the rundown. He's saying a Hell Knight tore up our men, etc., etc. And then we have this second choice here where the player is asking what kind of demon problem, and that's where the commander says, I'm not telling you anything. At that point, the player has the option to sort of walk it back and say, all right, what was the offer again? And then we start all over. So let's test this and let's make sure that all of this is working the way we want it to. Alright, so now you can see our two options. So we'll try asking him, what kind of problem is it? And you can see he's sort of upset. He's saying, I'm not telling you anything. So we now have the ability to say, alright, what was the offer again? And now we're right back on that very first page. And you can see we can ask again, what kind of problem? And he's just going to keep giving us that response. I'm not saying anything. And so when we finally say, sure, I'll help, he gives us the rundown on everything that's happened. He says he's lowered the gates. And then we're able to go out here now and enter that area. So we have nearly finished up with this, but there's one important part of this that we have not put in there yet, and it's a very cool feature of choices. So if you look at the dialogue that we've entered for this commander, there's a part right here where he says, I'll give you some coins up front so you can buy yourself some gear. We're basically doing everything but that. We're not getting any coins yet. So let's make that happen. So under a choice, you have the ability to actually give the player an item. And to do that, all you have to do is, we'll do this under the choice here where the player agrees to help, because this is where he should receive the payment. When you go to the choice where you want the player to get an item, you just type give item equals, and then the name of the item you want the player to have. Since we're going to be using Strife coins for our currency, we're going to use an actual built-in currency that Strife has. They have it's an actor called Gold 50, and what it does is if you give that to the player, it just gives the player 50 coins. And then whenever we make a shop later, whenever we put that arms dealer in the map, or at least whenever we set up the arms dealer's logic, he can check coins to see if we have enough to buy weapons and ammo. So when we say, sure, I'll help, we'll say give item, and then we'll say gold 50. And again, gold 50, this is a built-in actor from Strife, and this just gives the player 50 coins. There's also gold 10, gold 25, and gold 300. Those are other built-in actors, and those just give you those amounts of coins. In this case, we're just going to give the player 50 coins if he agrees to help. So it's just that simple. So just as another example, let me comment this out. If we wanted to give the player like a shotgun for accepting a quest or for making a choice, we could just do give item equals shotgun, and that would just give the player a shotgun. So it's that easy to give the player something for making a choice. For now though, let's just give the player 50 coins. So we'll go ahead and test the map and make sure that it works. So let's run right up here to the commander and accept his quest. Sure, I'll help. And look in the lower right hand corner now. We do indeed have 50 coins. And so that now means that we can set up our logic for our arms dealer. So we can now have this guy give us some choices to buy guns and ammo in exchange for coins. So we're going to show that next. And something I also wanted to show you guys is with these coin pickups, you can also go down here and grab these, and if you look in the lower right hand corner, those also increase our coin count. So that's just something optional I threw into this map. So let's back out here. For now, we have finished up with the commander. We're going to go back to the commander eventually, but for now we're going to focus our attention on this shopkeeper. So I'm going to show you guys how to set up a basic item shop. So let's go ahead and pull up the dialog editor again, and this conversation was for our commander, and this one is for the sentry. So we're going to make a brand new conversation just for the arms dealer. Something that I like to do when I start having a lot of conversations to help keep track of them is just make a comment above them to indicate what that conversation is for or who it involves. So to make a comment, all you have to do is put in these two forward slashes, and then you can type whatever you want. And this is not part of the dialogue. This is just something to help you identify who the conversation is for. So I'll just do a comment here that says commander, and then I'll go up here above this one and I'll type a comment that says sentry. So that just makes it easy to tell at a glance who these conversations pertain to. Something else you can do to save a little space is you can click these little collapse icons, and it collapses these entire conversations, and so you can use that too to help you out a little bit with navigating the dialogue editor when you have a lot of conversations to scroll through. For now though, we'll go down, and we know that this next conversation is going to be involving our arms dealer. So I'm going to go ahead and make a comment, and I'm going to say arms dealer, and that way we'll just ahead of time we're letting ourselves know that this conversation is going to deal with the arms dealer. So we'll begin with a conversation block just like we did before, and we need to give this conversation an ID. That's a step we shouldn't forget. So we've already used an ID of 1 and 2, so let's give this conversation an ID of 3. And then again, it all starts with a page block for each page of dialogue that you want to see. So we'll go ahead and put in a page block here, and we'll first put in the name of the speaker. So we'll do name equals, and I'll just make this say arms dealer, because that's going to be who we're speaking with. And I'm going to make his text really simple. He's just a shopkeeper, so I'll just make him say, if you've got coins, I've got guns. Just real simple. So this guy, he's really not going to be for making conversation with. He's really just going to be for buying stuff from. So let's go ahead and give the player 2 choices for now to buy stuff. So I'm just going to close the dialogue editor just for now. We're going to go right back to it in a second. But if we go into visual mode and look, you can see he's got a shotgun and a chain gun behind him. So I'm going to make those 2 weapons the choices that the player can make. So I'm going to pull up the dialogue editor again. And inside this page, we're going to insert a choice block. So by now, hopefully you are starting to get a little bit familiar with this terminology and the way that we're structuring these things. So for the first choice, this is going to be like what the player is going to see for when he's making the choice. We're just going to say that the text of that choice is shotgun. That way the player knows what he's going to be purchasing. What we also need to do though is make this shotgun cost something. We don't want this to just be some freebie that he walks up and gets. We want the player to have to spend something, and that something will of course be coins. So how do we do that? Well, thankfully it's pretty easy. Inside of a choice block you can have what's called a cost block, and this specifies that the choice costs the player something. So let's go ahead and create a cost block. And by now you should also be getting familiar with the block terminology. Notice that every time I say block, I'm using those opening and closing braces along with the word that I just said. So a cost block is very simple. It really just has 2 things that you can enter. You can enter the item that it's going to cost, and then how much of that item it's going to cost. For a shotgun, we're going to say the item that this costs is a coin, and then the amount of coins that this is going to cost. So we'll say amount equals, and then we're just going to type a plain number. I'm not really 100% sure how many coins this should cost as far as game balance goes. This is something you would just have to fine-tune yourself. But for both the shotgun and the chain gun, I'm going to use, just different random values I've come up with. Let's say that the shotgun costs 10. So when the player makes this choice for a shotgun, it's going to cost him 10 coins because of this cost block. What we also need to do, though, is actually give the player a shotgun. Right now, this text is telling the player that he can buy a shotgun, but we're not yet giving him one. To do that, you've actually already saw it above with the commander when we did give item. So down here in the shop, you can put it above or below the cost block. Just make sure it's inside the choice block. We can do give item equals shotgun. So now when the player makes this choice, it costs him 10 coins and he gets a shotgun in return. Something else we can do that's really nice is we can display how much this item costs automatically. Right now, if the player enters this shop and sees the choice, it's just, to the player, it's just going to appear like this in the list of choices. It's just going to see shotgun. He's not going to know how much it costs. What we can optionally do, though, is show the player the cost so that instead it shows up like this. So we can have it say shotgun for and then how much it costs. To do that, it's really easy. It's just one line of code actually. So either above or below the cost block, all you have to do is type display cost equals true. Just that simple. And that basically tells the dialog system that when this choice appears, display how much the cost is after the text. So the player will now see shotgun for 10. And one last thing that we can do, this is an optional thing, but it's kind of nice to have, is we can have the shopkeeper give messages for when you can afford something after you've made that choice and when you cannot afford it. So we can have him, give you like a confirmation, and he can also give you like a negative message if you need to go get some more coins and you can't yet make that purchase. This is what's called a yes message and a no message. So we'll start with a yes message. This is if the player makes this choice and he can afford a shotgun. So we'll just say one shotgun coming up. So you can just customize this to be whatever you want it to be. And then we'll throw in a no message. This is going to be if the player makes this choice but he doesn't actually have 10 coins. And we'll say, I'll just use a generic message. I'll actually use this message for all of our items in this shop. We'll just say, sorry, you can't afford that. Come back when you've got the coin. Just sort of a generic message. I'll probably be copying and pasting this for the chain gun. So let's go back over what we've got so far. When we speak with this arms dealer, a page of dialogue is going to come up. The name's going to be arms dealer. His text is just going to be real short and simple. If you've got guns, I've got coins. The player should see an option there, and it should say shotgun 410. And the reason the 410 is going to be included is because we added this display cost equals true line inside of our choice block. When we make that choice, because we have this cost block here, the player is going to lose 10 coins. He's going to get the shotgun, and then he's going to see this message pop up that says one shotgun coming up. Now, if the player makes this choice and he has fewer than 10 coins, then he's not going to get the shotgun, and he's going to see this no message that says, sorry, you can't afford that. Come back when you've got the coin. So unless I goofed up, everything should be good for the shotgun. So let's just run a quick test and let's make sure that I didn't make any mistakes. Actually, I almost got ahead of myself here. Before we do the test, let's make sure our shopkeeper is all wired up to that conversation. So the shopkeeper or the arms dealer, the conversation ID is 3. So we need to go to that actor. And all of these, just by coincidence, have already... I think I was editing this before I did this tutorial, so I accidentally had these conversation IDs in place, but by default they should all be 0. But for this shopkeeper, we will make sure that his ID is 3 because that is the conversation ID we set up for the arms dealer. Okay, so now that his conversation ID is correct, let's test it and let's make sure that everything works. So first thing I'll do, I'll actually go... we don't have any coins right now. I'm going to go try and buy a shotgun anyways. And let's see if we get that no message to pop up. Uh-oh. So we have a error here. We'll go fix that here in just a second. You can see he should have some text here, but we're not seeing that. We do have an option here though that says shotgun 410, so that part's working right. I don't have any coins, so let's try and buy it anyways. He's telling me, sorry, you can't afford that. Come back when you got the coin. So let's go to our commander real quick. And let's accept that quest. Alright, so we've got 50 coins now to spend. So let's go back over here to our arms dealer guy. And again, we've got to fix that dialogue bug with him. But let's try and buy the shotgun now that we have enough coins. He says one shotgun coming up, and if you look in the lower right hand corner, our coin count has dropped from 50 to 40. So it did correctly take 10 coins from us, and we do now have a shotgun. Alrighty, so let's go back to the editor and let's see if we can figure out what happened with that dialogue. It's probably just a silly mistake that I made, and yep, it is. So what I did, this is a mistake that I make all the time. It's really easy to make, something that kind of annoys me. So inside of a page block, whatever you want the person to say, it should be dialogue equals. So this should have been dialogue equals. Inside of a choice block, it's text equals for what the choice says. So it's real easy to get dialogue and text mixed up like that, but that should correct it. So dialogue equals, if you've got coins, I've got guns. So let's just test it. I'm not going to go through and test it with trying to buy the shotgun because we already know that works, but let's just make sure that his dialogue now shows up like it should. Alright, there we go. So his dialogue showing up there. Everything is good to go. So let's back out. Okay, so we've got the shotgun in place. Next up is going to be that big juicy chain gun behind him. So let's get that in there. So we will pop open the dialogue editor. And I hope by now you're getting familiar with the terminology and the structure of all this. So you might have already guessed it. For a chain gun, we're going to have another choice the player can make. And this is going to be extremely similar to the shotgun. So we'll do a choice block. This is inside that same page. The text for this choice will just be chain gun. That's the text that the player will see for making this choice. The cost for the chain gun will be it'll cost the player coins, and then the amount of coins it'll cost for a chain gun. This is where it's tough to sort of balance it. I'm going to give it a different number just for the sake of it. So for the shotgun we use 10. For the chain gun, I'm going to use 15. So chain guns can be a little more expensive to buy. We do want to display that cost, so we'll say display cost equals true. So that way when the player makes that choice, it will appear in the dialogue like this. Chain gun for 15. If we didn't include display cost, it would just show up as chain gun, just like our text. We don't want that. We want the player to see how many coins he's going to be spending on it. Alright, so if this choice is successful, we want to do give item, chain gun. That's the player we want the player, or that's the item that we want the player to receive. And then for the yes message, this is if the player is able to afford it. We'll say, here's your chain gun. End it with a semicolon. And I'm just going to copy paste this no message. So let me go up to the shotgun's no message, and I will copy it, and I will paste it right here for the chain gun. This is the message for when he cannot afford it. So it's going to be the same no message. Sorry, you can't afford that. Come back. And so that should all be correct. So let's go ahead and let's run another quick test on both the shotgun and chain gun. So we'll go right on over here to our arms dealer. You can see we now have two choices, shotgun for 10, chain gun for 15. If we try to buy the shotgun, he's saying nope, you can't afford that. If we try and buy the chain gun, same thing, we don't have any coins. So let's get some coins. Alright, so we're accepting the quest, we've got 50 coins. And now, if we try and buy a shotgun, we are able to afford it. That's taken us down to 40 coins. And if we try and buy the chain gun now for 15 coins, it works. You can see though, now we're all the way down to 25 coins, but we do have a shotgun and a chain gun to work with. So this is all fine and dandy, but we do have a little improvement we could make here. We've already bought a chain gun and a shotgun, but if we go up to this shopkeeper, you can see he still wants to sell us a shotgun and a chain gun. Wouldn't it be better if when we bought a shotgun, he instead started to sell us shotgun shells? And wouldn't it be better if when we bought a chain gun, he started selling us clips for that chain gun? Well, that's what I'm going to show you how to do next. So let's go ahead and back out into the editor. Let's pop open the dialog window. And I'm going to show you guys something that's really neat here. And this is what's called require and exclude blocks. It's sort of, it might sound a little confusing, but it's very handy. So a require block goes inside of a choice, and it basically requires the player to have a certain item in order for that choice to show up. An exclude block is kind of like the inverse. What it says is that if the player has a certain item, that choice should not be visible. So let's start by applying this to the shotgun. Let's add an extra choice here. I'm going to put it in between the shotgun and the chain gun, and this is going to be a choice for shotgun shells. But we only want this choice to show up if the player has already bought a shotgun and already has a shotgun in his possession. So let's create a new choice block. The text for that choice is just going to be shells. The cost will again be coins. So we'll put in a cost block. We'll say coin. And this is where the amount is going to be tough to get just right. Just have to tweak it. I'm just going to throw in a random number. Let's say that shells cost 2 coins. Again, balancing that out properly would just take a lot of time and tweaking, but shells will cost 2. And we do want that cost to be displayed, so I'll say display cost equals true. If this purchase is successful, we want to give the player a shotgun shell. Let's see, I think it's just shell singular. Let me actually pop open the GZDoom wiki to check that real quick. Yep, so I did just check the wiki. So for shotgun shells, the official actor name for that is just shell, singular, without an S on the end. So we want to give the player shell, and that will give him some shotgun shells. For the yes message, if he can afford this, we will just say, here are your shells. And then the no message, if he can't afford it, I'm just going to copy paste what we've already had above. Sorry, you can't afford that. Come back. Alright, so right now if we do this, this option is going to show up all the time, even if the player doesn't already have a shotgun. And that doesn't really make much sense. I mean, why would you want to buy shells if you don't even have a shotgun to shoot? So let's make use of those require and exclude blocks that I was telling you about. Let's go up here to the shotgun. And what we want to say is if the player already has a shotgun, exclude this choice. We don't need to see this choice if the player already has a shotgun. To do that, we'll just create an exclude block. So we'll just type the word exclude. And because this is a newer feature, I think this might be this might have come from the GZDoom Strife Dialog Format. You can see it's not color coded like the rest of the text, but this will work. So what you need to type is the item name that you want to exclude. So we'll say item shotgun, and you can optionally type an amount. If you don't type an amount, it just defaults to 1. So we don't need to type amount equals 1 if we don't want to. We'll just leave the amount out. So what we're saying now is for this choice, if the player has a shotgun, exclude it. Don't show this choice. It's just that easy. And now we can go down here to the shells choice, and instead of exclude, we can use a require block. So let's type require, and it's also a newer feature, so you're not going to get the color coding that you see with the other text. But we'll go ahead and do opening and closing braces, and we'll do item equals shotgun. And so what we've said is for this shells choice to show up, we must require that the player has a shotgun. So if the player has a shotgun, this choice will show up. If he doesn't, you won't see this choice on there. And up here for the shotgun, we're saying if the player has a shotgun, exclude this choice, don't show it. So what we've essentially set up is a system where if we go to this shopkeeper and we don't have a shotgun, he's going to sell us one. If we already have a shotgun, he's only going to sell us shotgun shells. So let's test it real quick and let's make sure that that actually works. Alright, so we're accepting the quest, getting our coins. Let's go over here to our arms dealer. And you can see we don't have any option here for shells. So let's buy a shotgun for 10 coins. There we go. So we spent some coins on a shotgun. Now let's interact with the shopkeeper and see what happens. Aha! So now there's no option for a shotgun anymore. We only have an option for shells. So we'll click that. You can see here are your shells, and it did indeed give us some shotgun shells, and it took some coins away. So we're now able to spend a bunch of coins to rack up on shells, and that's just a much better system overall. So now let's do the same thing for our chain gun. Let's make it so that when we buy a chain gun and we go back to this guy, he will sell us a clip instead to fill the chain gun up with. So let's go ahead and pop open the dialog editor. And if you would like to, you can feel free to pause this tutorial and try and do this yourself, because the logic is going to be very similar to the shotgun shells. So if you'd like to stop right here and give it a shot yourself, feel free. But I'm going to go ahead and implement this now. So I'm going to go below the chain gun, and I'm going to create a new choice, and this is going to be for the ammo clip. So for text, we'll just say clip. And just like with the shotgun and everything else, this is going to cost the player coins. The amount of coins it'll cost, we'll just do the same as the shotgun shells. It'll just be 2 coins. We do want to display that cost, so we'll say display cost equals true. If the player successfully makes that transaction, we will give him an ammo clip. And then for the yes message, I'll just say, here's an ammo clip, and then the no message, if he can't afford it, is just going to be the same as above. I'll just copy paste again. Sorry, you can't afford it. Come back when you've got the coin. So now we want to do something just like with the shotgun and the shells. So for the chain gun, we want to do an exclude block. So if the player already has a chain gun, we don't want to see this choice. So we'll say exclude, open and closing braces, item equals chain gun. So now if the player has a chain gun, he's not going to have an option to buy a chain gun. And then for the clip, we're going to put in a require block. We're going to require that the player has a chain gun for this option to show up. So we'll do require, opening and closing braces, item equals chain gun. So if the player already has a chain gun, we don't want to sell him one. If he does have a chain gun, we only want to sell him an ammo clip. So now let's test this, and let's just make sure that our shop is fully functional and that everything is set up. So we'll run up here real quick. We will accept our request, get a bunch of coins, run right back down here to our arms dealer, and we're going to test everything out. So we'll pull up the shop. You can see all we have right now is just shotgun and chain gun. Let's buy a chain gun. There we go. We have 35 coins left. And now you can see there is no chain gun listed. We have an option for a clip. So now if we buy this, we spent a couple coins and we got some ammo. So we can spend some coins to fill up our chain gun with. And then if we buy a shotgun, it's going to be a similar situation. We got a new shotgun, and now you can see, since we have both a shotgun and a chain gun, this shop has basically gone from being a gun shop to an ammo shop. So it's like a dynamic shop. It sort of matches with the situation. So that is excellent. Everything is working perfectly. So that pretty much concludes this part of the tutorial. We've set up a fully functional weapon and ammo shop. So now let's focus our attention on this sort of shady trader guy down here in this sewer. So this is going to be the guy who, I think I mentioned it way earlier in the video, who's going to be wanting to trade a pistol for a chainsaw. And this is going to lead me into what's called an if item block. So when you have a conversation, there's a way to make it so that if the player has a certain item in his possession, the conversation jumps to a different page. And if he doesn't have that item, then it will just stay on the default page. So let me show you how to do that. So let's go ahead and pull up the dialog editor again. And we have a lot of conversations here, so I'm probably going to start collapsing some of them. But I'm just going to make a new comment here at the very bottom. And we'll just say Shady Trader. This is going to be the next guy we'll be dealing with. And to save some space, I'm going to go ahead and collapse these other conversations just to sort of help keep them out of the way. So now this is going to be the fourth conversation. That also sort of helps you keep up with the numeric IDs. We know that this is conversation 1, this is 2, this is 3. So we know this will need to have an ID of 4. So that helps out with the IDs as well. So we'll start a new conversation block. This one will have an ID of 4. Remember, you always want to have an ID that hasn't been used yet. And by now you should be used to this. Each conversation sort of starts with a page block. And what we'll first do is just type the name of who we're speaking with, which will be Shady Trader. It's that sort of weird guy down in the sewers or the waterway. And then we'll have him say, I'll just throw in some dialogue here where he says, if you have a pistol, we can make a trade. And you know what, actually, I think I'm going to flip the logic around here a little bit. Let's say, come back when you have a pistol and we can make a special trade. There we go. So this will be the default text that shows up. This is like if the player speaks to him and he doesn't have a pistol. But let's say the player does have a pistol and we want something different to happen. Let's say that if the player has a pistol, we want him to go to a different page where that trade is being proposed. Well, we'll first start with we'll create a different page of dialogue where that trade is being proposed. So I'll create a different page block here. Name equals Shady Trader. So that's something that's kind of annoying. Each time you make a new page, you have to kind of repeat the name, but that's something that you need to remember. And then here's where he's talking about the trade. We'll make him say, how would you like to trade that pistol of yours for a chainsaw? So basically, if the player finds a pistol and he speaks to this guy, he's going to offer the player to give up his pistol for a chainsaw. And that's where the player can have a choice. So we'll work with the choice here just a little bit later. For now, though, let's focus on this logic here where if the player does have a pistol, he will go to this page. And if he does not have a pistol, he will go to this page where he's saying, hey, come back. How would we do that? Well, it's pretty easy. I already mentioned it a little bit earlier. It's with what's called an if item block. An if item block goes inside of a page block. So we'll just type if item. And here you just enter the item you want to check for and then the amount of the item. Here we want to check for a pistol. So we'll say item equals pistol. And the amount is optional if you only have one that you want to check for. Now, if we wanted to check for several of a certain item, we would need to specify it. But if you only want to check for one pistol, you can leave the amount out. So we'll do that. So what we're going to say is if the player has a pistol, send him down here to page 2. So all we have to do is go below this if item block and say link equals 2. So what's going to happen is when the player speaks with this shady trader, we start with this page, and it immediately kicks off with this little if item check. We're saying if the player has a pistol, send him to page 2. That's what this link does. We're just shooting him down here to page 2. If he doesn't have an item, this whole block here that I've highlighted, this is going to fail, and the player's just going to see this where the shady trader saying, come back when you have a pistol and we can make a special trade. So let's test that. I need to make sure too that we give this conversation ID to our shady trader actor. So let's go over here to this guy over in the corner, and by default the conversation ID should be 0. We'll change it to 4 because that's that new conversation we just set up. And let's just test it and make sure that our if item block is functioning properly. So we'll run over to this guy, and we don't have a pistol yet, obviously. We don't have anything. And you can see he's saying, hey, come back when you have a pistol. So he knows that we don't have a pistol yet. Now, something I didn't show you guys that I meant to show you is down in that cave where the Hell Knight is, there is a pistol you can pick up. So you're meant to go down there into that Hell Knight cave, get the pistol, and then come back here later. For now, though, I'm just going to cheat and give us a pistol using the console. So I'll just bring up the console and say give pistol. So we're sort of simulating that. So let's act like we've picked up a pistol and we've come back to this guy. So now when we speak to him, watch what happens. So you can see the dialogue's totally different. Now he's saying, how would you like to trade that pistol of yours for a chainsaw? So we're one step closer to our goal. So now let's pull up our dialogue editor again, and let's see if we can sort of finish this thing here. So we'll focus on this page here where he's saying, how would you like to trade that pistol? So right now we don't really have an option to accept that trade, but let's make that happen. So we'll start with a choice block, because this is obviously where you want to give the player an option or a choice to make. And then for the text for that choice, we'll have the player say, sure, I'd love to have a chainsaw. And since this is going to involve trading a pistol for a chainsaw, if you think about it, this is basically going to be a cost. So the player is going to be getting a chainsaw, but this is going to be costing him a pistol. With our arms dealer, you already saw how to use a cost block to take something from the player. And that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to say cost, and then we're going to do item equals pistol. And in this case, since it's just going to be one pistol, we don't have to specify the amount. So we're already saying here that when the player makes this choice, it's going to cost him a pistol. So we're going to be taking a pistol from him. And then we're going to do give item equals chainsaw. So when the player makes this choice, we take a pistol from him, but we give him a chainsaw. So what we'll also do is throw in a yes message for when we have accepted this, and it'll be like the shady trader sort of thanking us for the trade. So I'll say yes message equals thanks, man. I've always wanted to have a pistol. So he's sort of thanking us for that. So let's go ahead and just test this so far and make sure that all this logic is working. So we've already seen that the pistol check works. So I'm not going to go through that again. I'm just going to cheat and give us a pistol. And now let's see if the trade works. So when we speak with this guy, he says, how would you like to trade that pistol of yours? So we'll say, sure, I'd love to have a chainsaw. You can see he thanks us. And it did indeed take our pistol away, but now we have a chainsaw to use. Something else that I want to show you here. This is mostly complete here with this shady trader, but I want to show you how you can go ahead and just close out a conversation, but at the same time advance it to a new page. And the reason for this, let me actually show you something real quick. Let me demonstrate this again. I meant to, during that last demonstration, I meant to show you this. Let me cheat again. Let's give us a pistol. I want to show you the problem that we're facing right now with this. So if we go up to this guy and we agree to that trade just like we did, guess what happens if we go back and speak to him now? Now he's saying come back when you have a pistol. That doesn't really make sense. What we need to do is when we make that trade, we would like to have a page where when we come back and speak to him again, he's saying, hey man, thanks for the pistol, I love it. So let's create a brand new page. Don't forget the closing brace. For some reason it didn't put it there. We'll do name equals Shady Trader. And then the dialogue, so he's saying, thanks for the trade, man. I love this pistol. So what we'll say when we make this choice, we'll do next page equals 3, because we have 3 pages. The first page is this one here where we're doing that if item check. The second page is where he's proposing the trade. And then this last page will be once the trade is completed. This is when we've agreed to the trade. He's saying, thanks man, I love this pistol. This is going to be when we come back to him after we have made that trade. So that should sort of round things out. So let's do one last test on this Shady Trader, and let's just make sure that this all works the way it should now. Alright, so I'm going to cheat again and give us a pistol. Let's go through with the chainsaw trade. Uh-oh, but we have a problem. And this is something I actually skipped over there, but it's leading me right into the next lesson. So notice that we have sort of this weird behavior where we want this line here to show up only when we come back and speak with him later. We don't want this page to just immediately jump up. So if we pull up our dialogue editor window here, what we want to have happen is when we select this choice, we want it to advance to this page, but we don't want to see it right away. So to do this, we can say when you make a choice, you can do close dialogue equals true. And what that essentially does is when you make a choice, it just immediately closes the dialogue window. But this next page line here will still kick in. So it's still going to advance him to this page where he's thanking us for the trade, but the dialogue window is going to close. What that means is that this thanks for the trade, man, I love this pistol, that page is only going to come up if we speak to him later. So let me demonstrate it and you'll sort of see that in action. It'll be easier to understand when we demonstrate it. So we'll go ahead and cheat and give us a pistol. We'll run down here and go through with the trade. And notice it kicked us right out of the dialogue. He did tell us thanks, but now if we go back and speak with him, he's saying thanks for the trade, I love this pistol. So that's what I meant earlier about the closed dialogue. When we did the trade, it immediately kicked us out of the conversation with him, but it still advanced his page so that now when we come back and speak, he's on that last page where he's saying thanks man, I love this pistol. So I hope you guys understand what I mean by that. Something else that I just want to show you guys real quick, I meant to show you this earlier actually, is how you can customize that generic buy message. So normally like your goodbye option is just going to be something generic that's randomized, but you can actually customize that if you would like. So when he's asking right here, we're still on this Shady Trader conversation where he's asking, how would you like to trade that pistol of yours for a chainsaw? Instead of saying buy or goodbye for the last option, we could customize it to say, let me think about it, I'll come back later, or something like that. All we have to do is inside of the page block, just type goodbye equals, and then whatever you want the buy message to actually say. So let's just say, let me think about it. And now let's test it and just see that let me think about it option down there. So once again, I'll cheat and give us a pistol. And you can see our custom buy message. So normally this would just be something that said buy or goodbye, just something generic. But now since we specified what we wanted it to be, it says, let me think about it. So that's just a nice little thing that you have at your disposal. It's completely optional, but sometimes it could be nice to have that. Alright, so we've made great progress. We've got the quest from the commander. We've got the arms dealer that's going to sell us guns and ammo. We've got this trader guy down here that can give us a chainsaw in exchange for a pistol. So now let's focus our attention on our quest, which is to kill the Hell Knight. And what I want to show you here is how you can make it so that a conversation for an actor completely changes. So more specifically, what I want to have happen is when we go down here and kill this Hell Knight, I want it so that our commander switches over to an entirely different conversation. In other words, you can see, let me collapse this shady trader conversation. You can see we have a conversation for the sentry. We have this conversation here for the commander. This is where he's given us the quest, etc. When we kill the Hell Knight, I would like this commander to just be given an entirely different conversation where he is not talking about giving us a quest, but is instead basically accepting the quest and then rewarding us. So how would we do that? Well, let's start by creating that very conversation that I'm talking about. So let me go below the shady trader, and I'm going to change my comments up a little bit. So up here for this commander conversation that we've already talked about, where he explains the demon problem and gives us the quest, I'm going to change this comment to be commander, let's see, I'll just call it commander before quest completed. There we go. And I'll just collapse that to save some space. And then I'll go down here for this new comment. I'll say commander after quest completed. And I want this to be an entire conversation that's just centered around the fact that the Hell Knight has been killed and that centers around the player getting his reward. So, in other words, when the player kills the Hell Knight, I want our commander's conversation to be switched to this new one we're about to write. So let's go ahead and just type out this conversation. So I'll start with a conversation block, and let me collapse this shady trader conversation. And if we count, you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we are on our 5th conversation. So I'm going to give this one an ID of 5. And we'll start with a page block. And for the name, we'll say commander. And what I want the commander to say to the player is, my men tell me the Hell Knight is dead. Is it really true? So he's asking the player, have you really killed the Hell Knight? And the player will have an option to verify that. So we'll do a choice block. And the choice that the player can make will be, it's true. I killed it. So he's telling the commander, yep, it's true. I did it. And what we want to do when the player makes this choice is to send him to the next page. Before we do that, let's go ahead and make that next page. So we'll create a new page block. Again, we have to type name commander. Here's going to be the commander congratulating the player. So I've already typed this out. I'll just go ahead and retype it. You've done well, soldier. Take these coins as a reward. And feel free to call this base of ours home. Alright, so when the player speaks with the commander, when this particular conversation is in place, I should say, the commander is going to ask, is it true? Did you kill the Hell Knight? The player has an option to say, yep, it's true, I killed it. And then when he picks this choice, he should be sent to this page here where the commander's saying, you've done well. Take these coins. You know, he's congratulating the player and he's rewarding him. So for this choice, to send the player to this page, we've already seen this before. We're going to do next page equals 2 because 2 is the number of this page. Remember, I'm just going to reiterate this. Page numbering starts with 1. This is page 1. This is page 2. And we also need to give the player some coins as a reward. So inside this choice block, we'll just do give item equals, and then similar to when we accepted the quest from the commander, we'll give him 50 coins. And once again, the name of that built-in actor is gold 50. Even though it says gold, it's actually coins. So this gives the player 50 coins. So just to reiterate here, What we want to do is whenever we kill the Hell Knight, we want to go to our commander and we want to assign him this new conversation. And that way when we go back and we speak with the commander, what we see is this new dialogue here where he's saying, "My men tell me the Hell Knight's dead. Is it true?" And we can say, we have the choice there to say, "It's true, I killed it." And once we make that choice, we get 50 coins, and then we go to this final page here. We say, "You've done well, take these coins, feel free to call this base home." So it's pretty simple and straightforward. If you'd like, you can also throw in a custom goodbye message, or like a custom bye message before we tell him it's true, I killed it. I'll just do that. So I'll say goodbye equals, I'll just say, "Let me step away for a moment." It's entirely optional, but sometimes it could be nice to have that. But now that we've gotten this work out of the way, I've already gone over this. We want this to be the conversation that the commander has after we kill the Hell Knight. So how exactly would we do that? Right now the commander, if we go to his actor here, you can see right now he's using a conversation ID of 2. How would we change him over to 5, which is the one that we just wrote? Well, it's very easy. Thankfully, there is an action specifically for that. So if we go to our Hell Knight and we pull up the list of actions, there is an action, and it's under the thing category, I believe, and it is set conversation. There it is, number 79. Action number 79, set conversation. So what you can do is you can specify what conversation a certain thing should be set to. If we go to our commander, I should have checked this a second ago, he has an actor tag of 1. I think I gave him this tag ahead of time. So what we're going to say on the Hell Knight is when we kill the Hell Knight, I should have said this also, this action is what's going to execute when the Hell Knight is dead. When you put an action on a monster, that means that when the monster dies, this action executes. But when the Hell Knight dies, we will execute action number 79, which is set conversation. We want to target our commander who has a tag of 1, and we want to set his conversation to 5. So now when we kill this Hell Knight, our commander is going to go from this before quest completed conversation, he's going to switch to conversation 5, which is where he's saying, "My men tell me it's dead, is it true?" So that should all be set up now. We've specified the commander's tag, we've specified what conversation ID he should be switched to. I think it's all set up. So now that this is set up, let's run through the entire sequence of events. Let's get the quest, buy some guns and ammo, let's slay that Hell Knight, and let's return to the commander. Let's see if the entire chain of events works. So we'll go up here real quick and grab the quest from our commander. Actually, I'll try and ask him here, what kind of demon problem? You can see he's upset. I'm not telling you anything. So what was the offer again? So we'll say, "Sure, I'll help." He's given us a bunch of coins. He's also lowered those gates, but we don't want to go down there yet. We don't have any guns, so let's go ahead and buy some guns. I'll go to this arms dealer. I'll buy me a shotgun. I'll also buy me some shells to go with it. And what the heck, I'll buy me a chain gun too. And some clips to go in it. Alright, so we're sort of loaded up now with ammo and guns. Let's go down there and kill that Hell Knight. We can also grab some coins here. So we will run down here. Sort of an awkward map design that I have here. There's our objective, so we will kill him. I'm a lousy shot here. There we go, objective completed. So although we didn't have a message pop up, behind the scenes what just happened is our commander switched over to conversation 5 now. I'll grab these coins. We can also grab this pistol. You could take this to the shady trader to switch for a chainsaw. I'm not going to bother doing that this time because we already know that works. Let's go back to the commander because he's the one I'm most interested in, and let's see if his conversation has really changed. Aha, so notice now he's saying, My men tell me the Hell Knight's dead. Is it true? You can also see my custom buy message that I typed in. Let me step away for a moment. That just backs you out of the conversation. But if we say it's true, I killed it, he says you've done well, take these coins. And notice we did get some coins as a reward. And feel free to call this base of ours home. We're done. So that's, I mean, that really wraps up almost this entire tutorial. Everything works, the quests work, the weapon shop works. We know our little shady trader guy works down here. In fact, we'll go ahead and try it out, especially since I didn't cheat with the console this time. So since we picked up the pistol, you can see he's letting us make a trade. So we gave up our pistol, but at least now we have a shotgun, a chain gun, and a chainsaw, which is a pretty good arsenal. But I mean, that's really just about everything. Before I conclude this tutorial, I do want to show you guys 3 more really cool features. I'm going to start with 2 that I think you'll be most interested in, and then I'll also show you one last thing that's pretty cool and pretty easy to set up. So the first 2 things that I want to show you that are really cool are how you can add custom character panels for the character you're speaking to, as well as custom voices. And this is pretty easy to do. So we'll start with the custom character panels. So when we speak with this commander, let's give him a custom panel that pops up instead of just a plain old dialog box. So to do that, all you have to do is first get you a graphic element that you want to be used for the panel. And I've already grabbed this graphic element here from Strife. And that's the one that we will use. So I'll go ahead and pop open our WAD in Slade, and all you have to do is when your WAD is open, you just go to your graphic. That's just the graphic that I showed you there is just a PNG image. You drag it into your WAD and just make sure that your image is above your map marker files. You definitely don't want it to be within your map markers, but I'm just going to move this image just near the top of my WAD directory here. And we also need to remember the name of this image. You can see I've sort of named it after our commander, but I've spelled it a little strange. It's CMMNDR, since the characters can only be, since the file names can only be so many characters long. So that's all you have to do. Just throw the image in your WAD using Slade, and I'm going to save my changes. And now if we go back to our dialog here for the commander, on each page, you can put this really anywhere in the page. I'm just going to put it under his name since it naturally goes with that. All you have to do is type panel equals and then the name of that graphic lump that you put in there. So mine was CMMNDR, the way that I sort of spelled it weird. And then don't forget the semicolon. And this is a little annoying, but you have to do this for every page. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to paste this on every page for the commander. So let's go to this page, and I'll put it under his name. And then we'll go down to this last conversation after the quest has been completed, and I'll do the same thing. And that way, every time we talk to the commander, no matter which page of dialogue we're on, we will see that panel. And that should be all that we have to do. So let's go ahead and save our map and play test it, and let's make sure that that worked. Alright, you can see that we have our panel there, and no matter what page that we're on, that panel is showing up. And even after we've completed the quest and come back, it'll be the same way. So that is how easy it is to have panels. You just put the graphic into your WAD, you type panel equals and then the graphic name, and that is it. It's that easy. Really cool. It really helps enhance the conversations. So next I want to show you something that is arguably just as cool, and that is how easy it is to add voice acting. So I've already gone in ahead of time and I've recorded voice lines for all of the commander's lines, and that way it will actually be spoken just like it is in Strife for some of the characters. So once again, I'm going to go to my, I have some assets here for this WAD that I've made. These are the voice lines that I've already recorded. I'm going to go back to Slade. Actually, just to be safe and make sure that my map doesn't get corrupted or I don't have any weird conflicts, I'm going to close our map temporarily in Doom Builder. We'll come back and open it again, but let's go over to Slade, pop open my WAD, and for voices the process is a little different. It's a little more complex than with panels, but it's not much more complex. So what you need to do for if you have a PK3 setup, all you need to do is put your voice files inside of a voices directory. But in the case of a WAD like this, what you need to do is you need to create two markers called v_start and v_end, and then put your voice files in between those markers. So let's do that step by step. So I'll create a new entry here in this WAD, and I'll call this v_start. And then I'll create another new entry, call it v_end. And I will select both of these, and I'm going to move these above our map markers because we don't want those to be anywhere in the map files. There we go. So above our map markers and all of our map stuff, you can see we have v_start, v_end. And now all we want to do is just put those voice files in between those markers. So let's go to my assets. I'm going to drag those voices in. And I got lucky there, and it placed them just right. But if it didn't, just select them and make sure that you move them so that all the voices fall between v_start and v_end. And now from this point on, adding those voices to the character is really just as easy as it was with adding panels. So I'll close this WAD in Slade and save my changes. Let's go back to Doom Builder and load my WAD again. And then I'll pull up the dialog window. And what you have to do is, instead of panel, you're going to type voice. So I'll do this underneath panel. You can put this anywhere in the page block, but I like to have it here near the name and the panel since those kind of naturally go together. So I'll just type voice equals and then the name of the voice lump. And I happen to know that I recorded my voice lines in order, and my files are named like voice 1, voice 2, voice 3. So I sort of got lucky by doing it in order. So for this very first line, it's going to be voice 1. That's going to be the name of the audio file that corresponds to that. And voice 2 is going to be going with this, I'm not telling you anything. So voice equals voice 2. And the voice 3 MP3 that I recorded goes with this one where he's given us the mission briefing. So I'll do voice equals voice 3. And then voice 4 and voice 5 are going to be with these lines here that he gives us after the quest has been completed. So voice 4 is going to be where he's saying, is it really true? Did you really kill it? So voice equals voice 4. And then this last one here, this very last line, should be voice 5. That should be the name of the MP3 file for that. So that should give us full voice acting now. So we'll test the map and make sure that that's the case. Got a job for you, soldier. Bit of a demon problem. If you'll agree to help, I'll give you some coins up front so you can buy yourself some gear. I'm not telling you anything until you accept my offer. Got a job for you, soldier. A Hell Knight just tore up a bunch of our men down in a cave by the swamp. Take these coins to the arms dealer and gear up. Then kill the Hell Knight and return to me for a reward. I've lowered the gates leading to the swamp. Best of luck, soldier. Okay, so now that we've killed the Hell Knight, let's see if we have the dialogue at the end. My men tell me the Hell Knight is dead. Is it really true? You've done well, soldier. Take these coins as a reward, and feel free to call this base of ours home. Alright, so there you have it. Full voice acting and panels. So both of those go a long way to making conversations much more impressive in my opinion and much more immersive. Alright, so that nearly wraps up this tutorial. I did want to show you guys one very last thing though, and that is how you can give like generic guards or generic NPCs random conversations. So when you speak with them, they will give you random lines of dialogue. So to do that, what we'll do is I will close the WAD here in Doom Builder. We'll come back to it. We will pop open Slade. Let's open up our WAD. And what you will want to do is create what's called a language lump. So I'll go to New Entry here, and we will call this Language. And I will move this up to the very top. I'll just go ahead and move it up above everything else here at the tip top of my WAD. And then I'll click View as Text. And now we will go ahead and start to type out some of those random responses. So at the top of the language lump, what you want to do is inside of brackets, you want to type the word default. So we'll do an open bracket, type default, and then closing bracket. And that basically just says that this is the default language if there's no specific language translation available. And next, this is where it gets a little weird. We type in all uppercase txt, like for text, underscore, random, underscore, and then a custom name, and this is usually a name that you want to be like associated with the actor or the type of situation. So for here, I'll just type generic guard, underscore, and finally you want to type a number ranging from 0, 1, all the way up to 10. And to explain how this works, when you have random phrases like this, you ideally want to have exactly 10. If you have fewer than 10, then the remaining ones will just be pre-filled with these generic responses. And if you have more than 10, the ones that come after 10 will just be ignored. So let's start by typing 0, 1, and then we'll go down and do text underscore random underscore generic guard, if I could type correctly, underscore 0, 2. Then we'll do the same thing, 0, 3, and we'll just continue up till 10. There we go. So we've typed all those lines out. And now, of course, we need to specify what each of these phrases should be. And the way this is going to work is when we speak with a generic guard, it's just going to pick one of these phrases. So let's go ahead and type these out. I'll start with 0, 1, so I'll do equals, and then whatever you want the phrase to be. So I'll just say, hey soldier, how's it going? And then we'll end it with a semicolon. Don't forget your semicolon at the end. And then we'll just do the same for 2 all the way through 10. Just typing different random phrases that you want to possibly come up. I've already filled out a bunch of these, so I'm going to go ahead and type them real quick so you guys won't have to wait for me, and we'll cut right back in when I've typed them all out. Okay, there you go. So I've typed all these out. I'm not going to bother reading them all to you because I don't want to drag this video on any longer than it already is, but these are the random responses that we can possibly have, and we've given the name generic guard, and that's going to be an important part for setting this up inside of our game. So now that we've typed all these responses out and we've used this sort of code word for all of them, let's go ahead and close our WAD and save the changes. And then to put this into effect, all we have to do is open our map in Doom Builder. And now to assign these random lines of text to generic guards, all we have to do is first open up our dialog editor window, and we'll create a new conversation specifically for guards. You can see the last conversation we made had an ID of 5, so we'll create a new conversation here. I'll create a comment and make it say generic guard. Create a conversation block. This one will have an ID of 6, and as usual we'll start with a page block. For the name of the speaker, we'll just say guard. And here's where it gets a little different. So for dialogue, instead of typing the actual dialogue that we want, we'll just say random underscore generic guard. And you should recognize this from our language lump because this is exactly how it was worded. You're going to have random underscore and then that custom name you typed. And don't forget your semicolon. And that should be all that we need. So I'll go ahead and close this window. And now let's assign that conversation with an ID of 6 to some of our random guards out here. This guy's our sentry that we worked with at the very start of the tutorial. We won't bother him. We will go to these two guys though, up in this tower. So I'll select this guy and this guy. Let's give them both a conversation ID of 6. So they should both now have random pieces of dialogue when we speak with them. So let's test it and see if it works. And you can see I'm getting different responses each time. Pretty cool. And you can also use this for the bye messages here. You could say goodbye equals and then random underscore and the custom name that you chose to randomize your goodbye messages. You can use this for random bye messages also. But that pretty much covers everything. This has been a massive tutorial, really tough to make. Took a lot of planning, and I hope this hasn't wore you guys out. I will be breaking this video down into a bunch of chapters to hopefully make it easier to digest. But if you've made it this far, then I salute you, and I really hope that this video has helped you out. So I'm not going to drag it on any longer. Thank you all for watching. This is Chubbs signing out.